My older brother was a musician. He had bands growing up whenever I was a young kid and stuff like that. So I grew up around bands and music and people coming to the house for jams and band practice and stuff like that. So I just grew up around music. My mom loved music. My mom is probably the greatest musical influence I have in that she introduced me to all the stuff that I still like. Most kids, when whatever their parents' jams are, you tend to try to gravitate away from that. But whatever she liked, I've still liked to this day, and never really strayed too far. So, like when we're talking about influences, you could tell from the studio. The Grateful Dead is always a big one. Neil Young was a big one. Creedence Clearwater Revival. Tom Petty was stuff that she would play in the car when we would go places. So that's just what informed my musical taste growing up. Tom Petty being like probably my biggest hero growing up. I loved the idea of kind of a southern small town guy playing rock and roll music with his friends. And that informed what I always wanted to have, which was a band growing up. So I started playing acoustic guitar and writing my own songs whenever I was like 13. And recording them in my room on the little computer mic, trying to make anything sound good. But all I ever wanted was a band. All I ever wanted was that and something. I wanted just a killer band to play with, which I'm able to build now. I have the Backstabbers that I play with sometimes. So that's kind of where my musical world came from, was from my mom. There's a lot of instruments in here, You could see this is a pretty stocked out studio, but the one that is probably the most unassuming but means the most to me is this acoustic guitar that I paid $99 for off of a musician's friend clearance sale whenever I was probably, I don't know, 12 or 13 years old. I saved up my money, and I liked it because it looked just like the one Neil Young had. And so this is kind of my first guitar I ever bought that I wrote every song I've ever written, I've written on this guitar. If you ever listen to any of my music, recorded music, every acoustic track is this guitar. Any artist that's come through here has used this guitar because it really is, it's either haunted or it's special, or it was just a really good day at the factory. Somebody ate a good lunch and made a good guitar, because it's a Rogue $99 guitar, but it just rings, and it's just got this kind of magic spirit to it. And I used this guitar live for probably a good decade. I don't use it live anymore because it's kind of starting to show its age. I've worn a patch in the sound hole, but it's always been a special instrument to me, and it has birthed, 3 albums worth of music. Yeah. Okay, so Paul messaged me on Facebook and asked me if I wanted to be part of what I thought at first was just going to be a reunion show for the Air Junkies and Thingfish and for a few other people. And I was like, hey, that sounds like fun. I love Paul. I think he's an awesome guy. So I was excited to have him reach out and want to do the show. But then as we started talking about it, and he talked about the benefit for with autism spectrum disorder and stuff like that, that's when all of a sudden it's like lightning struck, because I have a son who is technically he's on the spectrum. He goes to therapy every day. I drive him from Jennings to Sulphur every day. He goes, 8 to 5. He's in therapy, getting help. And I've just seen, life is never perfect, And saying that a kid will become normal, I think that's totally not how we as parents with autistic kids just say, I just want my kid to be normal or whatever. That's such a horrible way to look at it, because what's normal? What's the spectrum for normal? But he's gotten so much better from what I've seen from him going to therapy and having people who care and want to work with him, that if this helps benefit and get other kids to that level, to where not that we want kids to be normal or we want them to be different. We want to still have them be themselves, because part of what, is part of his struggle with autism is also his greatest strength, in that he's freaking awesome. My youngest son is awesome, and I would never want to change who he is, but there always can be things that we can make better for our children who are on the spectrum. And that's why this is important, in that I want to see kids go to therapy. I want to see kids get proper help, and not just parents flying by the seat of their pants trying to figure out how to handle some of the things that can be kind of complicated with autism. So that's why the show means a lot to me, and I think it's going to be cool. I know that Tracy, who plays in Thingfish, I'm excited to share the stage with him, because he's one of my favorite people in the whole world, and I'm excited to see the bands that I haven't seen before, and bands that probably have stopped playing before I was even, aware that we had live music in Lake Charles. So I'm excited about the whole deal. Yeah.